Hi, Joleen. How are you?
I'm having a great time. How are you getting on, Jason?
I'm doing okay. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
I'm glad we're on video because I can see your impressive ginger beard. It's very good.
Yes. Is it?
It is. It is.
Wow.
And I've done a huge assessments of ginger beards over the years.
Thank you
It's
so
a fine
much.
one. I can tell you that. And your eyebrows. Yeah, yeah. Do you know when you kind of turn your head kind of 45 degrees to the
Yeah.
sun? Good glow off them there now.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that now. God, you flustered me there now a little bit at the beginning of the interview. So, Joleen Cronin, you are a photographer.
Yeah,
You have two published books,
yeah.
The Coast of Cork and The Coast of Kerry. When did you get into photography?
Um, Great question. I think I've always been interested in creative things. Like right from the get-go. I've always kind of been drawn to imagery in particular. Um, and I love photography. I love art, love painting, love anything in that realm. And I studied multimedia in CIT, which is now MTU, um, from 2000 to 2004. And when I graduated from there, I really kind of had a grow, I suppose, for graphic design and photography. And I kind of started pursuing freelancing part time work from there. It's a very, very difficult career to
Yeah.
walk into a job. They kind of don't really exist. You kind of nearly have to make your own job. So I suppose since I left college, I've been used to kind of like just working for myself. Really, it was part time alongside my family. They own a pub, so I was lucky enough to be able to pull pints and serve lovely dinners to people for many years alongside my creative career.
Excellent.
But it's yeah, it's eventually taken off. So this is what I do full time now. I do photography. I do lots of video work. I do a bit of podcasting. So I'm kind of creating lots of different content for people, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, obviously, that's something that you picked up as a passion when you were younger.
Mm.
When that becomes your full-time job and your way of making money, do you lose the love for it or the graw, as you said, or um, because it's that passion, does it stick with you?
Well, I suppose there is that old cliche saying that, find a job you love and you never work a day in your life. And while that is probably true, you probably work harder than anybody else, especially I think in creative and artistic fields. You really do have to kind of push yourself, in order to get work, to be paid fairly, to even get the jobs, and get people to warrant something like that as a job. Um, in terms of kind of losing the passion for it, no, I think it develops all the time, and like I'm learning all the time as well. And even while I started out maybe doing photography and graphic design, that's evolved into so many other creative spheres.
Mm.
And I kind of feel that in a way it's nearly storytelling in a different way, like doing an interview with somebody like we're doing today, or creating a video, or writing a piece. It's all just another way of telling a story, and I think that's kind of what excites me the most.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Actually, kind of, I wasn't expecting to ask you this question, but it just came to me now. How was your career affected over the past 2 years with COVID and the pandemic and stuff?
Great question. Because when it happened at the start, I was like a cowering bunny rabbit. I was absolutely terrified that I was going to be a starving artist, and
Yeah.
that was literally the end of me. And I suppose preceding that, about the year beforehand, I completely um, decided that I was going to go full time freelancing because I had part time jobs alongside, as I mentioned. So I really felt that I was out on my own, and it was the death knell of it. But
Mm.
funnily enough, the last 2 years have probably been my busiest. It really, really turned around. Like everybody, um, putting their efforts into online marketing, needing content. They've obviously changed their way of business. So I actually got incredibly busy, and my focus now is very much in terms of hospitality, food, people in tourism, and they all had to change their way of doing stuff, and they needed marketing people, and they need content creators to help them get that message across and help them tell their story. So no, for me it was actually brilliant.
That's great. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I'm also one of those lucky people that didn't lose my job during COVID and was able to keep going. And we're blessed, really. But so the reason I contacted you, Jolene, is
Mm.
kind of unique, kind of interesting.
Mm.
A couple of years ago, actually, I became aware of this Irish Redhead Convention.
Mm.
And I think I became aware of it because somebody sent me a link on social media or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, here we are, redheads. We don't need to hear about this. And you are the founder of that convention, is that correct?
That's right. I'm
That's right.
surprised you didn't kind of jump up and down with joy and get on the train and get the first bus to Crosshaven, because that's where all the gingers hung out. Like, you would have fit right in.
Well, we could probably talk about my own personal issues with the redhead as we go on. But so, how did this come about? Like, how did you set this up?
So as you can see, I have a lot of red hair on my head, and my brother, often thought of as my twin, but there's a year and a half between us. I actually have a lovely picture of us here.
Oh, there you go.
You see that?
Yeah,
So
Irish
it was
redheads.
this is my brother here. His name is Dennis, and he's sitting beside me on this mug. And it was coming up to Dennis's birthday. His birthday is in August, and we were sitting in our family's bar one evening and having a bit of a crack, and just talking about what we could do for his birthday. And we thought, do you know what would be a laugh now? We'll have a party, but we'll only invite people with red hair. And this was like the funniest thing that people had heard that were sitting around us. And it just kind of grew arms and legs. And we were like, well, what would you do like if you had a load of foxes together? We're like, well, we'd have to compare the beards. And then we'd have to give prizes for the most freckles per square inch. And then we'd have to get Paddy in Funky Town, the local adventure centre, to do the carrot tossing championships. Oh, and then we'd have to like give out free sunscreen because we just get sunburned looking out the window.
Yes.
And then we'd have to do ginger speed dating because we're meant to be a dying breed. So like all these ridiculous ideas just kind of started flowing. And the best ideas, as you probably know, happen just at a moment's notice. And often drink can kind of influence these things, maybe for the better or for the worse, I don't know. But that's basically where the concept was born. And obviously, as we both were involved in the family business, I guess in many ways, we were also trying to find ways to bring people in the door. And so we hosted it at home. And we also said, because us fair-skinned, freckled folk definitely struggle in the sun, that we should probably add a charity element to it. So we tied it in as a fundraiser for the Irish Cancer Society. And that was really, really appropriate and really, really great. So that's basically how it started. And the expectations weren't anything. The expectations were to go out and have a laugh.
Right.
And when it actually happened, it exploded. It went beyond my expectations in many ways. And the feedback I got from people was fairly incredible, that I felt that we had to do it again.
Wow.
And so we did.
Fantastic. And is your whole family redheads, or is it just you and your brother?
So my mum is Dutch. My dad is Irish. And my mum's family are actually where the red comes from. So all my family in the Netherlands have beautiful red hair. And my dad's side have dark but very thick and curly hair. So I think probably got the best of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Well, I have 7 siblings, and only 2 of us are redheads.
Okay.
So 2 out of 8. But the my nieces and nephews, there's already 3 redheads out of them.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
yeah, I'm never sure. People say, does it skip a generation? Is it your grandparents? I'm never really sure how it works, but I know that in all likelihood, I think one of my kids would be redheaded.
Well, you see, you're carrying the ginger gene, so it's a recessive gene. So you need to find a mate now that's also carrying the ginger gene.
Right.
And then you've got a very good chance.
Right.
Well,
I actually have recently just got engaged, and she is definitely not redheaded. So.
Okay. Well,
it's probably unlikely.
On the engagement. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So it's probably unlikely, but she really she's Canadian, and she would love a redheaded child.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're very special.
Yeah.
So, did you know that red hair is the rarest hair color in the world?
Right. Is it only 2% of the population? Am I right in saying that? Of the world?
It's actually 2% of the states. So usually when you read an article from the states, they consider that.
They say the world,
the entire world. But it's actually globally 0.6% of the world's population. Wow. So it's even smaller than that.
Yeah.
Now here in Ireland, we're pretty lucky because we've got about 10% of our population have red hair. So we're actually the second highest per capita after Scotland in terms of redheads. And from there it goes downhill. So we're kind of probably used to seeing people with red hair.
Yeah.
This is kind of what surprised me about the festival, was that we see it as a normal thing. And I certainly did growing up. For people who visited and came from overseas, I really found out how special it was to, to have red hair and probably be a little bit different as well because of it.
Yeah, and that's something that I've also learned to appreciate as I've gotten older.
Mm, mm,
When I moved to Canada, I was loved, people,
mm.
strangers on the street saying, "Oh my God, I love your hair."
Yeah,
And that was something I never really heard when I was growing up here in Ireland, just because, as you said, it's so common. And, we're like, oh, just another redhead, whatever. But
mm.
I've noticed in other countries that I am loved and I'm seen as like attractive and all these things that I wasn't sure I was when I was a kid.
It's great, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
we've got a lot to thank for as well to, I suppose, influencers the likes of Prince Harry
Mm.
and Ed Sheeran. And actually, talking about that, when you went to Canada, when I went to China, people were coming up and touching my red hair because apparently the color red is very lucky.
And there you go.
They might have
Yeah.
won the lotto.
Yeah. The Chinese
And
lotto.
there's another thing actually talking about the lotto, and I can't remember the detail. It's one country somewhere in the east that if you meet five redheads together, you've got a very good chance of winning the lotto. So I think we are the lucky charms.
So people were definitely coming over to the festival thinking, I'm going to meet at
This is
least
it.
five
Like I've
redheads
hit the
together.
jackpot. Like not only
Yeah.
am I going to be surrounded by 1,000 redheads, like I might win the lotto.
Yeah. I was thinking that myself. I've thought that over the years, how I noticed a shift in kind of my popularity or how people viewed me after Ed Sheeran became famous and Rupert Grint in Harry Potter and
Mm.
obviously Prince Harry as well. I never really thought about him, but
Yeah.
they became really popular and they became attractive personalities.
Mm.
And that's when I noticed the kind of shift with me as well.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
for me, my childhood hero was Bosco.
Bosco. Yeah, he was great.
Genuinely, like.
Yeah. So going back to the festival for a second, your aim originally was just basically to have the crack.
Yeah.
As it evolved, did your aim change? Did it become more serious?
Um, yeah, it did. So, um, as I said, day one, it was all about the crack, and like we were doing things like the carrot tossing championships, and we printed these really fun certificates of genuine foxiness for redheads that turned up, and we were giving them out, and what really struck me at the first event, other than the absolute crack that we had, was that parents were coming up to me and they said, wow, you've actually made my son or my daughter feel really, really special. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And you've given them huge confidence. And they always kind of like were maybe a little bit shy about their differences or being bullied or not kind of hugely confident in themselves. And you've really empowered them. And that was something I absolutely didn't expect at all. That didn't even enter my realm, because I suppose I've always been kind of like very kind of strong personality, like, and not one to shy in the corner. But like here, the other side of the coin was shown to me, and that really kind of like gave me a huge incentive to continue it, because I just was like, wow, this is actually something meaningful, like
Yeah.
we could do something here. And that, yeah, like I kind of brought in more about that, about kind of like serving community and empowerment, and kind of being proud of who you are. Like that's kind of how the
Yeah.
festival kind of developed from there on. Like obviously we had a lot of fun, but having shared experiences with other people and talking about that and finding a platform of people who are like-minded and with the same experience, that's kind of where it evolved into, which kind of sounds a little bit strange, but like if you were part of it, it was a really, really nice thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
And like the festival grew. Like our first event, we had about maybe 300 people at it. It ran for 7 years up until 2016. And at its height, it was a weekend long event with over 2,000 people at it. And of those 2,000 people, they traveled literally from all over the world, from New Zealand to different parts of the States. We had a volunteer who was the only redhead in Hawaii who traveled all the way over. We had people from literally every country in Europe coming. We also had every media in the world was captivated by the attention of it. So no, it definitely captured the imagination, and it was a great voice of community, really, and good spirit, like, amongst people.
It was. And is it true that we're going extinct?
No,
No,
That's not
was
true.
that was just a myth, was it?
No, that was, as far as I know, a story that was made up by a hair company.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think no.
So one of my questions was going to be, did you see relationships develop at the festival or at the convention? Did you see people? Yeah.
Plenty of them. Yeah, yeah. Like we ran an event called Ginger Speed Dating, which
Yeah.
definitely had a couple of short-term romances over the course of the weekend. But I know of a few people who are still together and even have
Yeah.
children, married, and houses. And in fact, my housemate actually was one of those who met a really, really nice guy who came from
Wow.
Australia, and he was literally off the plane, and within days he was down to the festival. It was one of the things he wanted to come and see. And now 7 years later, they're engaged, 2 children,
Wow.
and happy out. And that's not one story. There's many, many more as well too.
Yeah, so congratulations on that. Congratulations on keeping the gene strong and going with those
That's
people.
it.
Yeah. Um, so what I would like to hear from you is you speak very positively about having red hair, and
Hmm.
your language was all very nice and positive and lovely. I feel myself, my instinct is still negative when it comes to
Okay.
this.
Why is that?
Um, I'm not sure, and obviously this is something I can look back on my past and maybe pick out
Hmm.
certain instances as to why. Um, but when you were growing up, what was your
Hmm.
experience growing up as a young redheaded child?
Um, to be honest, I didn't have a problem with the red color of my hair. I probably had more of a problem with the fuzziness of my
Okay,
hair. And I think I was probably picked on for maybe different things, being tall, being big,
right.
strong, as my grandmother would say. Um, so no, I never saw red hair as a negative thing, to be honest.
Right.
And like that's actually what surprised me the most was when the Redhead Convention came around and those parents were coming up to me and saying these wonderful things because that had never entered my realm. I was like, what? People people bully you for having red hair.
Mm,
God, that's bizarre. But it is a huge thing for people
yeah.
and it has have massive impacts on people. But the thing is particular bullying, especially with schoolyard children, they'll find anything. They'll find if you wear glasses, you've
Yeah.
got different shoes, you're taller, you've got different hair color, you're a different religion, different skin color. They'll find something to pull at you.
Yeah.
And that's bullying, and nobody should stand for bullying.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're right. It's literally just something that distinguishes someone from somebody else.
Yeah,
So we have
yeah,
red hair, but it could be something completely different.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
And I
that's
think
again, sorry guys.
sorry to cut across you. Like South Park, the Who Killed Kenny Ginger episode, like that kind of almost made redhead bullying acceptable.
Mm,
There's a lot of instances of redhead bullying in the UK, which they've termed gingerism, people being beaten up just because they happen to have red hair,
yeah.
and it's not acceptable. But that's bullying on any level. It doesn't matter what it is. Bullying or racism, it's not acceptable across the board.
Yeah. I think as you get older, you start to love those things that make you different.
Mm.
And that's something that you learn that unfortunately kids don't know and that,
Yeah,
they can't have that in the moment.
yeah,
But when I was growing up, I was never once bullied over the color of my hair or
amazing. Yeah,
never once was called a name.
yeah.
But I still was very conscious of it and still didn't want to be redheaded. And I don't
Okay.
know why that is. But I see it even with my nieces and nephews, a few of them have red hair.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them in particular is very conscious of his hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not that he doesn't like it, but the hair is always brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that wouldn't be the case if it wasn't red and curly.
Yeah, but I
Growing up.
think guys probably have a harder time than girls. Like usually girls are quite praised for having beautiful red hair,
Yeah.
whereas guys maybe don't get so much praise.
Yeah, I think that's true. And especially in school again, because other
Mm.
redheaded kids were getting called names about their hair, but I wasn't. But the
Okay.
girls never wore. Girls
Maybe
were
they were
actually
afraid. Maybe they were afraid to pick at you.
maybe in some way. I don't know why, but
You and me both. We were the lucky ones.
But this happened only recently to me, actually,
Okay.
a couple of weeks ago, and it was a child that called me out for having ginger hair, and
Stop.
yeah, I laughed about
Hypothetical.
it. I laughed about it at the time, but afterwards I thought, wow, like that is something that's different about me. That this kid tried
Mm,
to tried to say something bad about me.
mm,
Would he have done the
mm.
same if I had black hair? No, he wouldn't have. He would have
Well, he probably would have found a different thing about you. Maybe he just,
exactly,
it was an easy target.
exactly, and that is obviously the issue, right? And that's what
Yeah,
younger kids are dealing with, and they aren't able to just laugh it off.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so that's great that you had this convention and people were able, especially young kids, were able to take a bit of pride in their red hair.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And like, so we're talking about kind of the negative experiences of having red hair. Like, there's so many positive experiences of having red hair as well. Like, I mean, I don't know. Do you walk down the street and kind of have you may have thought about this or may not, but certainly in my experience and other redheads I've met, there's kind of like this common understanding when you meet another redhead, you can kind of give them the eye, like
Absolutely. Well, I feel like me and you
the
have
street,
the
like
connection straight
it's
away,
like I know what's going on with your brother, like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like we have these shared positive things, like, and I think there is a lot of stereotypes that are always thrown about, redheads, that they're kind of fiery, vivacious, outgoing, temperamental kind of characters, and I think we certainly have the fire underneath us as well, like.
Yeah, no, my experience and family members, I've noticed that
Yeah,
is true. That is a
yeah,
correct one.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that was what was lovely about the festival as well, was, when you get a whole bunch of people sitting together from all corners of the world, and you're all having a laugh, and you're talking about these shared things, you definitely notice the commonalities, be them both good and bad.
Yeah. So
I bet you wish you were there now.
I do wish I went, like,
You having the
just to
FOMO, like.
experience it, just to experience it. It'd be some story to tell, but yeah, at the time I wasn't able to go, but
In denial. In denial you were.
I was. Yeah, no, to be fair, that is true.
Yeah,
I didn't appreciate my red hair then. I didn't like it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's when I started getting that nice attention of people that I began to appreciate it a bit more.
Yeah.
So you finished up in 2016. Why?
So the festival grew. It grew. It grew a lot, like over the 7 years that we ran it. In was it year 3 or year 4? Can't quite remember, but around that time, it was the year of the gathering. So this
Mm,
was a kind of a call to action by Fall to Ireland, where they invited people to come back to Ireland, clans, for example. So there was a lot of people putting on Cronin and Walsh family gatherings and what have you. And I remember pitching the idea of gathering all the redheads in the world and bringing them to this little village in Crosshaven. And it really just kind of, again, just kind of triggered something special, and because everyone could relate to it. And Fall to Ireland, in fairness, now they were so generous with their time, skills, marketing, financial support, that we were able to make what was, a 1 day festival in our tiny village into a weekend extravaganza, really, that
mm.
incorporated so much more. And there's no way we would have been able to do it without that kind of support. So that was kind of well, actually, probably the following year was the peak, because I think we kind of capitalized on all the marketing that went
Yeah.
internationally, and people, when they're traveling internationally, they don't just do it at the drop of a hat. They'd be like, geez, that's something now I'd like to go to next year. So the following year was probably the biggest one. But I'm a really, I love when things go well, and I love when things grow, and you learn from your mistakes, and I'm always finding ways to kind of make something a little bit better. So I would be probably my own harshest critic as well,
Right.
on the other side of it. So I love when things go great,
Yeah.
and I was putting huge expectations and pressure on myself as well to make a really good event that everybody could enjoy. But I guess following on from those big years, and not having the funding after that, that makes it really, really, really difficult, if not impossible. Because you've gone from something that's quite, extravagant, to being back to a shoestring. And this festival, for the whole 7 years that it was running on, was never a profit making event. Like, it was
Yeah.
always a pretty zero cost kind of a thing, relying entirely on volunteers, and I was one of them. And it just became too much, really, to be honest. Too much in terms of workload, too much in terms of cost, too much in terms of expectations. Because like it was painted as this, magnificent event, and you'd come down, it was a bit like going to a Father Ted festival, so lo-fi at the highest extreme. But like when you kind of read about it, maybe you think it's a little bit more extravagant than what it was. And I suppose we didn't paint it any other way, but people's expectations were that,
Yeah.
And running my own business then, like alongside it just started to impact too much on all the different things I was doing, and I couldn't keep it up. So we just said, look, that's it for now. We'll park it. We may revisit it. And that's what we did. And I think it finished at the right time. It was 7 years of absolute magic. And I've made the best friends in the world. I could probably go to any city and I have a redhead connection. I've actually traveled to other redhead festivals around the world during that time. And it's been great, like in terms of what I've learned about myself personally, but also learned about event organizing, marketing, PR, helping volunteers, achieve what they need to do. Like there's just so many facets to a festival. And, being part of that was just a massive life experience. So no, it was all good.
That's great. It's like a good TV show, when the time is right for it to end, the time is right.
Yeah.
Is there any regrets though on your behalf? Like, is there anything that like you wish you could have continued doing it, or things you could have done differently maybe?
Things you would have done differently. I suppose you'd always like a little bit more cash to make it work.
Yeah, fair enough.
When you're going back to the well the whole time, like asking the same volunteers and the same suppliers to help you out, like you feel like a bit bad about that. That was tough. But like no, I don't have any regrets. Like, and the great thing was as well is that like we kept that charity element going to it also for the 7 years, and like we raised a huge amount of money for the Irish Cancer Society, and like people, money aside, we also had like sunscreen tents up, and people were kind of able to do a screen on their skin to see if they had areas that needed a little bit more attention than others, giving out sunscreen. All that kind of crack was like really, really important messaging too, So no, I don't have any kind of regrets about it. In fact, I just thought it was a brilliant part of my life. Like,
yeah, no, it's definitely something to be proud of. And the charity at the end of the day, like, even if you had a horrible time doing it, raising all that money for charity, makes it all worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it was the messaging that was really important, because I think the marketing messaging for that festival was really positive. Like, and people always bring up the bullying and the bad sides of it, and I don't like to dwell on it, because I just think there's so much positivity about having red hair, and it's so much part of our heritage, or we could say heritage.
Very good.
I have loads of puns. It's so much part of our culture as Irish people, because like this part of the world where we are, there's reasons why we have 10% of our population here is because we're cloudy and the climate is like this, and it recognizes who we are as Irish people, Celtic people, and it's part of our DNA.
It is, and I got that just from talking to you straight away. I got that real positive energy coming about the redheadedness, which I'm going to take on from now. And
great,
thank you for that.
Ginger power.
Yeah, ginger power is right. So before we finish up, where do you see the future of the ginger population of the world? Like, now that we're more popular, are we going to see a greater?
Are we more popular now?
Oh, I think so.
Oh, we're more popular in terms of like popular culture, rather than there's actually more of us. I mean, more of us. What are we going to do?
Are we going to see more little ginger babies running around the world, or
God only knows. Who knows? Like red hair dye is probably the most popular hair dye going, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where are we going from here? Who knows? Well, do you know what I'm looking forward to? Like, there is still redhead festivals that exist. There's a huge one in the Netherlands that's on in August time. I'm looking forward to going back to that, meeting my redhead folk there, and like still having the old wink and the nod across the street. Like, I hope that never goes. I do hope that the positivity and kind of like empowerment that redheads have, like that we're proud of who we are, but that continues, that it's, you know, celebrated in our culture rather than kind of seen as something that's not something to be proud of. And like I think we have a lot to be grateful then for the celebrities to, you know, to bring us up that couple of levels as well. And that's kind of my hope with it, really, that people are just happy in their own skin and who they are. And yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, and thank you so
No
much
problem.
for putting the work in to spread the ginger positivity in the world.
Freckle love. Yeah, that's it.
Freckle love, yeah. And my fiance thanks you too for giving me that little bit of confidence maybe to produce a ginger child. Let's see.
Unreal. Go forth and multiply.
I will. Thank you, Jolene.
All right, no bothers.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.